Here's part 1 in approximately 800 words, written in simple English with a third-person narrative. The autumn wind swept through Millbrook, carrying leaves and whispers of hope across the quiet streets. Emma Thompson stood by the kitchen window, her hands wrapped around a chipped mug, watching her son Michael prepare for another school day. At 16, Michael was tall and lean, with his mother's determined eyes and his father's restless spirit. Life had not been kind to them. 3 years ago, Michael's father had walked out, leaving Emma to raise their son alone. She worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices during the day and waiting tables at night, just to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Their small 2-bedroom apartment felt more like a survival shelter than a home. Michael understood, struggled better than most teenagers. He knew every penny counted. His clothes were carefully mended, his shoes patched until they could barely hold together. But he never complained. Instead, he focused on his studies, believing education was his ticket to a better life. That morning, Emma slipped a slightly worn 5-pound note into Michael's hand. "Get some bread and milk," she whispered, her eyes tired but loving. "And be careful with the change." The local grocery store stood at the heart of Millbrook, a small building that seemed to have witnessed generations of town stories. Michael walked carefully, the money tucked safely in his pocket. The bell above the door jingled as he entered, the familiar smell of fresh produce and cleaning products filling his nostrils. Robert Harrison, the store's elderly clerk, watched Michael from the corner of his eye. He had seen many young people come and go, but there was something different about this boy. Michael moved carefully, checking prices, calculating silently in his head. Michael picked up a loaf of bread, checking its price tag. His fingers traced the edges, calculating if they could afford this and still have money for milk. Robert observed the boy's careful movements, sensing something deeper than just a simple shopping trip. "Can I help you?" Robert's voice broke the silence. Michael looked up, slightly startled. "No, sir, just checking the prices." Something in Michael's eyes spoke volumes, a mix of determination, worry, and quiet dignity. Robert recognized that look. It was the same look he had worn decades ago when he was struggling to support his own family. The store was quiet, with shelves neatly arranged and sunlight filtering through dusty windows. Michael selected a small loaf of bread and a half pint of milk, counting his coins carefully. Every purchase was a strategic decision in their household. As he approached the counter, Michael felt Robert's eyes studying him, not with judgment but with a strange sense of understanding. He placed his items down, his hands slightly trembling. "That'll be £3.50, Robert said, his voice soft. Michael counted his coins carefully, ensuring he had the exact amount. He didn't want to ask for any favors or show any weakness. Independence was a survival skill he had learned early. Outside, the town of Millbrook continued its quiet rhythm. People walked past, some rushing to work, others leisurely enjoying the autumn morning. But inside the small grocery store, a moment of silent connection happened between a teenage boy carrying the weight of his family's hopes and an elderly clerk who saw much more than just a customer. Michael stepped out of the store, his small bag of groceries clutched tightly. The wind caught his jacket, making him pull it closer. Another day of survival, another small victory in their ongoing struggle. Back home, Emma would be waiting. She would carefully slice the bread, mix powdered milk to make it stretch, and prepare for another long day of work. They were a team facing the world together, one careful step at a time. The story of Michael and Emma was not unique. It was a story of countless families fighting silent battles, finding strength in each other, believing that tomorrow might just be a little better than today. As Michael walked home, he didn't know that this ordinary day would be the beginning of an extraordinary journey, a journey of hope, unexpected kindness, and the remarkable power of human connection. The end. Here's part 2, in approximately 800 words. The days passed slowly in Millbrook, each one blending into the next like watercolors on a wet canvas. Michael continued his careful routine, balancing school and the unspoken responsibilities that weighed on his young shoulders. A week after his memorable trip to the grocery store, Michael found himself walking past the shop again. Robert Harrison was outside, arranging some boxes of vegetables. The old man looked up, catching Michael's eye with a gentle nod. "Michael," he called out, his voice carrying a hint of something between a request and an invitation. Michael hesitated. Conversations with strangers were not something he was comfortable with, but something in Robert's tone made him pause. "I could use some help," Robert continued. His weathered hands rested on a stack of wooden crates. "The store's stockroom needs organizing. Would you be interested in some part-time work?" The words hung in the air like a lifeline. Michael's mind raced. They needed money. His mother was exhausting herself with 2 jobs. Every extra pound would help, but pride and uncertainty made him momentarily hesitate. Robert could read the conflict in the boy's eyes. He understood the delicate balance between need and dignity. "It's proper work," he added quickly. "Fair pay, flexible hours that won't interfere with your studies." Michael's mind calculated quickly. The money would mean less stress for his mother. It would mean fresh bread without counting every penny. It would mean hope. "I can start this weekend," Michael heard himself say. The first day in the stockroom was more than just a job. Robert taught Michael more than inventory management. He shared stories of his own struggles, of times when life had tested his resolve. Michael listened, absorbing wisdom that went beyond simple store management. "A man's worth isn't measured by what he has," Robert would say, "but by how he handles what life throws at him." Emma was surprised when Michael came home that first day. His eyes were different, brighter, more alive. He pulled out an envelope with his first week's pay, placing it carefully on the kitchen table. "For us," he said simply. Tears threatened to break Emma's composure. This was more than money. This was her son becoming a man, taking responsibility, finding his path. The stockroom became Michael's sanctuary. Boxes to organize, shelves to stack, a world where everything could be put in its right place. Unlike the chaos of their personal life, here he could create order. Robert watched the boy work, seeing potential that went far beyond grocery store shelves. Some afternoons between work and school, Robert would share stories. Tales of Millbrook's history, of families who had survived tough times, of community and resilience. Michael listened, understanding that every story was a lesson. The other store workers noticed the change. The way Robert treated Michael wasn't like an employer treating an employee. It was more like a mentor guiding a promising student. They whispered about the unlikely friendship, an elderly shopkeeper and a teenage boy finding connection in the most unexpected place. Michael's confidence grew. His grades improved. The extra money meant fewer worries for Emma. She could now take fewer shifts, spend more time at home, breathe a little easier. But this was more than just a job. It was a bridge, a connection between generations, between a boy carrying adult responsibilities and an old man holding on to life's most valuable lessons. As winter approached, Millbrook seemed to hold its breath. Michael and Robert continued their quiet routine. The stockroom became a place of transformation, not just of inventory but of lives. Little did they know that this unexpected kindness was just the beginning of a journey that would change everything. A journey of hope, of unexpected connections, of discovering that family isn't always about blood, but about the hearts that choose to support each other. The first snowflakes began to fall outside the grocery store window, silent witnesses to a story of resilience, kindness, and the remarkable power of human connection. The end. Here's part 3. In approximately 800 words, winter settled over Millbrook like a thick blanket, bringing cold winds and harder challenges. Michael's world was changing, slowly but surely, with each passing week at the grocery store and in Robert's mentorship. The stockroom became more than just a workplace. It was a classroom of life lessons. Robert had a way of teaching that went beyond simple organization and inventory. He shared stories of his own journey, of mistakes made and wisdom earned. "Knowledge isn't just about books," Robert would say. carefully arranging a stack of canned goods. It's about understanding people, reading situations, and knowing when to listen. Michael absorbed these lessons like a sponge. His school teachers noticed the change first. Where he had once been quiet and withdrawn, he now participated more. His confidence grew with each passing day. Assignments that once seemed impossible now felt like achievable challenges. Emma watched her son's transformation with quiet amazement. The boy who had carried the weight of their struggles was becoming a young man with purpose. His eyes held a new spark, hope mixed with determination. One particularly cold Saturday, Robert introduced Michael to basic bookkeeping. Numbers had always been a challenge for Michael, but Robert's patient teaching made them come alive. They weren't just figures on a page, but stories of business, of survival, of possibility. Every number tells a story, Robert explained, showing Michael how to balance the store's accounts. Sometimes it's about what you have, sometimes about what you can become. Michael's school counselor noticed the changes too. His grades improved. His participation in class discussions became more confident. He began to see education not as a burden, but as a tool for transformation. The other store workers watched the unlikely friendship between Michael and Robert with a mixture of curiosity and respect. It wasn't a typical relationship, it was something deeper, a connection that transcended age, background, and circumstance. During quiet moments in the store, Robert would share stories of Millbrook's history. Tales of families who had survived economic challenges, of communities that had come together during tough times. Michael listened, understanding that every story was a lesson in resilience. As months passed, Michael started saving money. Not just for immediate needs, but for something bigger. He began researching scholarships, understanding that education could be his pathway to a different future. Emma noticed the change in more than just Michael's attitude. Their small apartment felt different. There was less tension, more hope. The worry lines on her face began to soften. For the first time in years, she could see a future beyond daily survival. Robert became more than just a mentor. He was a bridge between Michael's past and potential future. He helped Michael understand that success wasn't just about money, but about character, compassion, and continuous learning. The store became Michael's second home. He learned about responsibility, about showing up even when things were difficult. Robert taught him that true strength wasn't about never falling, but about getting up every time you did. School projects became opportunities rather than challenges. Michael's teachers began to see potential where they had once seen struggle. His presentations became more confident, his understanding deeper. "You're more than your circumstances," Robert would remind him. "You're defined by your choices, your effort, your heart." As spring approached, Michael felt different. He was no longer the boy who felt trapped by his family's struggles. He was becoming a young man with a plan, with hope, with understanding. The lessons weren't just about work or school. They were about life, about understanding that every challenge was an opportunity, that kindness could change everything, that one person believing in you could make all the difference. Millbrook continued its quiet existence, unaware of the transformation happening in the small grocery store. But for Michael, everything was changing. One lesson, one conversation, one moment at a time. The world was opening up, and he was ready to embrace it. The end. Here's part 4 in approximately 800 words. The unexpected arrived like a thunderbolt. Medical bill landed on their kitchen table, a crisp white envelope that seemed to mock their fragile financial balance. Emma's hands trembled as she opened it. £3,000 for unexpected medical tests she had undergone months ago. Michael found her that evening, sitting motionless at the table, the bill spread before her like a defeated surrender. He could see the weight of worry etched into her face, the same face that had always been strong, always found a way. "We'll figure this out," Michael said, his voice steady, despite the storm of emotions inside him. Robert heard about their challenge. When Michael arrived at the store the next morning, the boy's usual cheerful demeanor was replaced by a determined silence. Something was different. Something was brewing. "Tell me," Robert said simply, understanding that sometimes listening was more important than speaking. Michael shared their financial challenge. The medical bill felt like a mountain too high to climb. Extra shifts weren't an option for Emma. Her current jobs were already pushing her beyond human endurance. Robert remembered his own struggles. Decades ago, he too had faced seemingly impossible financial challenges. He knew solutions rarely came from panic, but from careful planning and community support. "There are scholarship programs," Robert suggested. "Programs designed for students facing economic challenges." Michael had never considered such options. The world of scholarships seemed distant, something for other people. Not for someone from their background, not for someone like him. But Robert was persistent. He helped Michael research local community support programs. They spent evenings in the store's back room, computers open, exploring possibilities. The local community center had a surprising option: a scholarship program for part-time students facing economic challenges. The application required detailed documentation, personal essays, and proof of financial need. Michael worked meticulously. Each word in his application was carefully chosen. He wrote about his mother's strength, about their journey, about his determination to create a better future. Emma worked extra cleaning shifts. Her body ached, but her spirit remained unbroken. She believed in her son's potential more than she believed in her own limitations. Weeks passed. The medical bill hung over them like a dark cloud. Michael continued working, studying, applying. Robert continued mentoring, supporting, believing. Then came the letter. Thin envelope. Michael's hands shook as he opened it. Approved. A partial scholarship that would cover most of their immediate medical expenses and provide additional educational support. The committee had been moved by Michael's essay. They saw more than financial need. They saw potential. They saw hope. "We believe in second chances," the scholarship coordinator told Michael during a follow-up call. "Your story matters." Those words meant more than money. They represented validation. Recognition that their struggle was seen, their efforts acknowledged. Emma cried when Michael shared the news. Not tears of defeat, but tears of hope. Tears that represented years of silent struggle, of quiet determination. Robert watched from a distance, understanding that some victories are won not in grand moments, but in small, persistent steps. The medical bill no longer seemed insurmountable. The scholarship provided a bridge, not just financially, but emotionally. It told Michael and Emma that the world could be kind, that systems could support those who worked hard. Millbrook continued its quiet existence. But inside their small apartment, something had changed. Hope had found a permanent residence. Michael understood now that challenges were not walls, but opportunities. That every obstacle could be transformed with persistence, education, and community support. As summer approached, bringing warmth and new possibilities, Michael looked forward. The boy who once felt trapped by circumstances was now seeing a future filled with potential, one challenge conquered, many more to transform. The end. Here's part 5 in approximately 800 words. 2 years had passed since that moment in the grocery store. Michael stood in his university dormitory packing the last of his belongings. The room was small but full of promise. Textbooks, notes, photographs of his journey. Emma watched her son, her eyes glistening with pride. The transformation was complete. From a struggling teenage boy to a university student with purpose, Michael had become more than she had ever dreamed possible. Robert sat in his favorite chair at the grocery store, a photograph of Michael pinned to the staff bulletin board. He had become a silent guardian of their remarkable story, a witness to hope's incredible power. Michael's scholarship had been more than financial support. It was a complete transformation. He studied business management, inspired by the lessons learned from Robert in the small grocery store stockroom. Every lecture, every assignment carried echoes of those early conversations about life, responsibility, and potential. The university was different from Millbrook. Students from various backgrounds, dreams larger than small-town limitations. But Michael never forgot where he came from. His working-class background wasn't a limitation, it was his strength. Emma had reduced her work hours. The additional support from Michael's scholarship and his continued part-time work had changed their financial landscape. She could breathe easier, could dream a little. "I'm proud of you," she would tell Michael, her voice carrying years of unspoken struggle and hope. Michael's first-year results were exceptional. Professors noticed his unique approach. Practical, grounded, understanding business wasn't just about numbers, but about human connections. Robert continued mentoring, even from a distance. Occasional phone calls, letters of encouragement. He had become more than a mentor, he was family. The community of Millbrook watched Michael's journey with quiet pride. A local boy who had transformed his circumstances through education, hard work, and community support. During university breaks, Michael would return home. He would help at the grocery store, spend time with Robert, support his mother. The lessons of humility and gratitude remained deeply ingrained. His university friends were amazed by his story. Michael didn't boast, but when asked, he shared honestly. About a mother's sacrifice, about a mentor's unexpected kindness, about believing in possibilities. Emma had started a small savings account, not just for herself, but with a dream of supporting other young people like Michael. Her struggles had taught her the power of small, consistent support. Robert was slowing down. Age was catching up, but his spirit remained unbroken. He had found purpose in Michael's journey, proof that one person's kindness could change a life's trajectory. As graduation approached, Michael reflected on his journey. From a teenager uncertain about his future, to a young man with clear goals and a deeper understanding of life's complexities. The scholarship had been more than money. It was a bridge, a connection between what was and what could be, between struggle and opportunity. Michael's graduation day was a celebration of more than individual achievement. It represented the power of community, of unexpected kindness, of believing in potential. Emma sat in the audience, her simple dress pressed carefully, her heart overflowing with emotion. Robert watched the live stream from the grocery store, a quiet smile of pride on his face. The world seemed full of possibility, not just for Michael, but for everyone who dared to believe, who worked hard, who remained open to unexpected opportunities. Michael's speech was simple but powerful. He spoke about resilience, about the people who had supported him, about the power of small kindnesses. "Success isn't a solo journey," he said. "It's a collective effort of everyone who believes in you." As the ceremony concluded, Michael looked toward the future, not with fear, but with excitement. The boy from Millbrook was now a young man ready to make a difference. His story was just beginning. The end,